a webinar here. First, I'm Doug Britton, the training manager here at Prom, and I want to thank you for showing up for this presentation on the release of the Ethernet LAN network option along with Modbus. The majority of this webinar, I'm going to focus on the LAN portion of the release. I do want to kind of just make sure that everybody knows that Modbus RTU is available. I don't have a PLC here to interface with that Modbus module, so there's not much I can do with it right now. So in the future, I'm looking to expand on a webinar with more of the Modbus. I just want to make sure everybody knows that it has been released. Both of these options are available through the ident code. So when you configure the controller on eQuote or however you're doing it, when you get down towards the bottom, there's a section for communication. In that communication section, you'll pick either none, the LAN, or the Modbus. So kind of further expanding on the LAN network option, we're going to talk about the benefits of having that option. We'll discuss field installation. That is something that is retrofittable in the field. So if there's a customer out there that already has this controller up on a wall somewhere, we can potentially go in there and install the card, and we'll go through that installation process real quick. It's probably a fairly simple 10-minute process to get that installed. We'll talk about getting connected to the controller, and then once we get connected, we'll go into the web browser and show you the interface that the web browser will allow us to navigate through certain options within the controller. So expanding on some of the benefits, why would your customer maybe want this or need this, is once we have that LAN network installed, we can connect either with a wire to a network, or we can connect wirelessly through a air card. Once we do that, we can have access 5 feet away by just locally being plugged in from a laptop to the controller, which is what I'm going to kind of present to you here. My laptop's sitting here and I have a controller sitting next to me. I'm going to plug the Ethernet cable from the DACa, and it's going to plug directly to the laptop, and we're going to connect that way. I could also go into a router and then into a wireless card, and then as long as I have cell service where that controller is, I could dial up that controller from anywhere in the world through my tablet or my laptop or even my phone, and kind of monitor what's going on with that process if I'm away for the week on vacation or just out of town for some reason or home for the weekend. Anytime I want to just see what's going on with that process, I can log in remotely. I can also share that connection with people, and I can give them access to that, and I can have it locked out so they can't make any changes. They can just monitor things. I can also give them a password so they can make changes to certain parameters within that controller. It also kind of maybe simplifies things for us. The DACa is pretty simple to navigate, the big, large keypad and the multi-display to screen with multiple lines of display. It's pretty easy to navigate, but this offers another way to put different parameters into the controller instead of having to use that keypad. I will add, and we'll kind of, you'll notice we're limited to what we can change on the browser. Most of the programming does need to be done locally at the controller. So when you're initially doing startup, you have to be by the controller already to do a calibration of the sensor. It's kind of hard to calibrate the sensor not being in front of the controller. So while you're there doing that, you need to set up your different measured variables, your pumps, your relays, your limits. Initially, startup should be done at the controller, and then you'll see once we go into the browser, you can fine-tune and tweak some different parameters when we're in there. Like I had mentioned, this is something that can be installed in the field. The kit is what you see in front of you on the screen. That part number is a 1074175. So upon purchasing this kit, you'll get everything you see in the picture. You have here is just kind of an instruction manual for the DACa. You get a CD that gives you some of that manual on there. You also get a replacement shroud, a plastic shroud that they give you. This shroud has a different knockout over here for that LAN browser card. That is a little different on the shroud that's currently in the unit that you may have out there. This is the cable you're included. You're included with it's about 10-foot long cable. You also get stickers here to replace the ones that are on your unit that's currently in there. So this is your second call. This is your channel 2 wiring diagram, and then your first channel wiring diagram that you'll see in future pictures. They slide on that plastic shroud. This is that LAN card. We're going to go through the process to install that. Again, I said it's a fairly simple, once you have the tools gathered, 10-minute process. This is the LAN cable that's going to be housed inside of the controller. So upon getting this card here at Prominent, I installed it in the controller as my desk, and I took some pictures of that process. The first thing you're going to do, this first picture already shows the front hood taken off. There's 4 Phillip head screws that just need to be loosened, and then you can gently put that hood to the side. You bend it back a little bit. It is still attached with some cables, so do be careful you don't kink any of those ribbon cables. First thing you're going to need to do is to loosen and take out these 5 screws here. They are T10s. They're Torx, so you do need a Torx bit to uninstall these. There is 5 of them you need to pull out. Along with that, you're going to pop this fan off and set it to the side. You don't have to disconnect this cable. There is enough room for it to just lay back here. One thing you should notice is there's 2 black O-rings here. There's one here and then one up here. They kind of dampen any vibration from that fan starting or stopping or running. Make sure that plastic shroud you get with the kit does not include those O-rings. So make sure you do swap those over to the other plastic shroud. Next, we're going to pop off this cable. Once that cable's off, that will allow us to pick out, to lift up that plastic shroud. If your controller has a second channel, like mine does here, the second channel board is clipped into that board. So mine's the second channel. It's a dual channel controller, so I have that second board on there. We flip that up out of the way. In this picture, in this red square, this is the installation where you slide in that card. You can see in the next picture we have that card slid in there. It's pretty simple. Just make sure the pins line up and you're not bending any of those pins as you're pressing it into the controller. Once that board is in there, the kit is supplied with 3 T10 Torx screws. You're going to put those in there. There's holes in that in the board below it to install those to secure that network card in there. Once we're done with that, we're kind of moving away from the controller. You need to pop off the second board if you have it from the plastic shroud that was in there. Once you pop that out, you can throw away this plastic shroud. It's not needed anymore. And then set this board to the side. Once we do that, we grab that plastic shroud that was supplied with the kit, and we are going to, first thing we do, this is kind of the completed process of this. You're going to leave this board off for right now. We're going to pop out a couple of these holes. This hole here needs popped out. You can see in the picture it's already removed. that is where your connection is going to be made for the LAN card. You also need to, if you have a second board, pop out your wires here, your terminals, your PH, and also these terminals here. That's if you have a second board. Also, you can place your stickers on. There's recessed slots for them to stick in there, so it's pretty easy to line them up and stick in there. Your 2 stickers for your first channel and your second channel. And then also you'll have to pop out this fan area here. There's a fan cover here. You'll notice in this picture my O-rings weren't transferred over yet. Make sure the O-rings are transferred over to this board. They're not here yet, but they were in the final installation. The fan, if you already have this, you'll see if I go back, this fan has that pop out from that plastic shroud in it already. So when you pop this one out, you can just discard that and throw that out as long as the fan already has one in it. Once you have all these popped out, your O-rings are transferred over, your stickers are on, your knockouts are knocked out, you can then clip the second board in there. That board isn't screwed into that shroud. There's just 4 plastic clips on all the corners that hold it in. So it just presses in there. You'll hear the clips click on it, and that holds that second channel in there, that board in there, if you have that option. Once we have that plastic shroud all assembled, we can then put it back in the controller. First thing you probably want to do is put your 5 Torx T10 screws back in there. Lightly screw those in. They are screwing into plastic, so you don't want to torque them too much, or else you could potentially strip out that plastic. So just make them pretty snug. Also connect this cable back up that we disconnected. Throw your fan in there, and then we're pretty close to final assembly here. We are going to need to grab the O-ring that was supplied to slip over the end of the cable here. Once that is, we can slip it, plug this end into the network card, loop it around, and then use a supplied nut to clamp this assembly into the controller. Once we have that done, we can throw the front cover back on. At that point, you aren't exactly ready to go. If you're doing a field installation, you do need to call us up and get a code, and we need to give you an access code to program that option into the pump. It isn't plug and play. As soon as we plug that in there, the lights may be blinking on that card, but we still need to update the permissions within that controller to say that, hey, you have permission to access that LAN. And if you call us up, we'll give you a code that you put in there. That code unlocks that. One thing to keep in mind is that code that we give you does only last 24 hours. And we do have to get it from Germany, so give us a heads up if Germany's gone for the day, depending on what time of day it is. We may need to get it the next day. If you plan on going out next week to do it, for instance, give us a heads up. We can plan to have a code available for when you do that. So right now you either order it with the LAN network option, and if you do that, it's ready to go as soon as you order it. If you did the retrofit like we just went through, you have that code, you've accessed it, you've unlocked it in the controller. We're ready to start trying to figure out how to get connected to the controller. What we need to do is I need to have some sort of physical connection with an Ethernet cable. That cable is supplied. So what I have here is I have that green cable you saw in a previous slide, and I have that ready to be plugged into my laptop that's sitting in front of me. So first couple things we need to do before we actually try to manipulate the settings in my laptop is we need to determine the controller's IP address. We also need to set an access code within the controller. That access code that I'm referring to in B is not the code I was just talking about when you're installing the kit. It's a different code, and I'll show you the difference between the two. Once we set that up within the controller, we need to configure my laptop's IP address, network connections, and then D we'll do last when we're finished. So first things first, we need to determine my controller's IP and subnet mask. So pretty simple. In order to do that, I'm going to hit the menu button. Once I hit that menu button, it's going to show this screen. I'm going to arrow down until my cursor is on setup. Once I'm there, I can hit enter. It's going to take me to my device setup screen. On my device setup screen, I'm going to arrow down until I get to bus configuration. Once I get to bus configuration, I will be in this screen. This tells me my IP address and my subnet. You need to write this down at this point or keep it in the back of your head, because I'm going to have to type this into my laptop. That IP address you can change, which is a good thing because you're most likely going to need to change it if you're trying to, for instance, if I were trying to make this controller available to everybody on the prominent network here at our facility here, I would need to go to our IT department and ask them, what the IP address is, and I could change it here so it would link up with our network here. Being that I'm going directly to my laptop, I'm just going to leave this here. That address is what I can do by just directly hardwiring it to my laptop. So I can back out of that once I have that IP address noted, and then we need to enter the access code. So I'm back at the main menu here. I go down to setup. I'm going to go to access code. While I'm here, I'll mention that this access code is the password for the controller. So once I start an access code, anytime I go back to it, it's going to ask me to put that code in. The activation key I was talking about prior to this, if you're retrofitting it, would be entered here. This is that code we'd get you. You would go into this screen and press, it's I think a 12 to 15 digit code we would give you to unlock that LAN network if you were installing it in the field. You wouldn't need to do that activation key if you ordered the controller from us with that option already. But in order to make this work, we do have to turn this access code on. So I accept this here. It's going to take me to this screen right here, and I have 5 different access codes I can set. In order to, on the browser, to actually go in there and to make changes, I have to log in as the administrator or supervisor. I can still view it remotely, but if I want to go on there and make changes, I have to go in as the administrator. So I'm turning the administrator code on. You'll see I made it active. Now, I'll tell you this, factory default, whenever you pull that up, it's going to show up as 4 5s. If you change that code for the administrator, we don't have a very good way of changing that back. So if you do change that from 4 5s, make sure you write that down and don't forget what that password is. If you call up, it's going to be hard for us to be able to set that back without bringing it back and doing a factory reset on it. So far we've obtained our IP address from our controller, and we have the access code initiated within the controller. We're now ready to go to my laptop in front of me to make the network connections. Now, the operating system of my controller is Windows 8.1, so it may be a little different from what you're doing. I have 8.1 on my computer. We do have different handouts that guide you through the different processes. So what I'm going to do is I am going to exit out and go to my main screen. Ideally, what I need to do is find my control panel. So I'm going to type in control panel, open this up. and I need to enter into my network and sharing center. So I'm going to click that. And you can see right now, I'm talking you through the wireless connection here at Prominent. So I'm the wireless network. The reason for that is I need to use my Ethernet port to log into the controller. So what I'm going to do right now is plug in my green cable to my Ethernet port. And you should see that show up. You can see it's trying to identify that process there. So I need to assign an IP address. So I'm going to click on that Ethernet. It brings up the details for it. I don't have any network access because I'm just directly wired to. We don't have communication set up to the controller yet. So I'm going to click on Properties. I'm going to scroll down. I'm looking for Internet Protocol version 4, the TCP/IP. I need to change the properties here. So I click Properties. Typically, when you go into this, it should always be on Obtain an IP address automatically. When I'm hooked up to a network, the network here, Prominent, my computer goes out, automatically assigns an IP address. It finds one that's available and uses that. I don't want to do that right now. I'm going to assign an IP address. So I'm going to go to that. I'm going to type in that 192.168. So 192.168. Make a change here. 0000001. That's the IP address for our controller. Now, if I left that address in there, that would be like me trying to call my own number from my own cell phone. It's not going to work. So I need to change that number to something else. So I can change that from anything to 0 to, I believe, 255. I just can't use any number that's already assigned to something. So that 001 is assigned to our DACA. So I'm just going to change it to, for instance, let's just go with 100. I also click here. It's going to assign that subnet mask 255.255.255 for us. That's a pretty common one. So we're good to this point. I'm going to OK. Close out of this. I like to back out of all this just to make sure accessed it all. And we're on a public network. We're directly wired up to the controller. Now I'm ready to go and open up the browser. You can use any browser of choice. I currently use Google Chrome. So I'm going to type in the address for the controller up here. I'm going to try to dial it up. So I'm going to do 192.168. You can see I already dialed it up. So I'm going to click it. This is going to log us on to the browser view. Make this a little bigger for us so we can see it. This is the browser viewer here. Now you can see it looks kind of the same layout as the DACA controller. You can see I have one, I've set up a little simulation here. I just have a potentiometer controlling my chlorine. I have a pH simulator here to change simulate the pH value. So on channel 1 we're measuring chlorine. Channel 2 we're measuring pH. You can see my set points. If I kind of roll over here, my set point for chlorine is 10 part per million. You can see I'm at 9.6, so I have a pump assigned to that channel to increase chlorine. So I'm at 13%, which equates to 23 pulses a minute from my pump. My lower limit is at 4 ppm. My high limit at 16 ppm. My pH, I want to be at 7. Right now I'm at 6.98, which is pretty close, but we're pumps at 1 pulse a minute to try to raise that pH. My lower limit is currently at less than 5. My high limit is at 8.5. Now right now I'm not logged in, so I can't make any changes. I can't change anything. There is settings here, but I can't do anything right now. I need to log in here. That administrator password you saw was 5555. We're going to enter, and it's going to say that we're logged in as the supervisor. Once I'm in here, I can stop the controller here locally. You can also stop the controller locally at the controller, but I'm just stopping it here on the browser. We'll start it back up. So what changes we can make are underneath these settings here. So I can click settings. I can set my limits, so I can change my low limit if I need to. I can set up an activation delay or a stop delay. I can also change my high limit. What I can't do is I can't assign those limits to a relay. These relays, you see there's 3 relays here. I had to get those initiated. I have to set those up at the actual controller. I can't manipulate those relays locally here on the browser. Also, if I got on parameter number 1, you can see that I am set up for doing PID one-sided. And you can see my set point was at 10 ppm. My proportional value is at 3 ppm. So what that tells me is that the further away I get from to 10 part per million, my pump's going to ramp up proportional until when I get to 7 ppm, which is 3 below 10, at 7 ppm my pump's going to be at 100% speed. This would be my I and the D if I wanted to tune that. So I can tune my PID. One thing I can't do is if I didn't set this up at the controller, you can see here I can't turn this control on here. I need to do that at controller. I need to actually initiate the control side of it at the controller, but once I initiate it there, I can fine-tune it from my browser. So let's just make this 2 ppm. We'll save that, and we'll go back to here, and I'm going to, with my potentiometer, decrease chlorine, and you'll see that pump value go up. Remember, we set the proportional value to 2 ppm. So that would be 8. So you can see the closer I start getting, this potentiometer is a little touchy, but you can see the closer I get to 8, the closer I get to maximum frequency of my pump until we are at 8, and then we get to 100% or 180 strokes per minute. We can also set our pH value down here. Anything we want to do, we can set up here. We can control our PID for our pH. So we have a pump set up currently for chlorine to increase chlorine. We also have a pump set up to increase our pH if needed. You can see we have 3 milliamp outputs here. Currently these first 2 are set up. What I can't do from this screen is tell exactly what those are set up to do. I know because I programmed the controller that those 3 values are for measured values. So this first one tells me the measured value of the chlorine channel, and this one's for my pH channel. So let's simulate one of the relays. I know my alarm relay is set up that if I hit my lower limit, my alarm relay will go off. And that limit is set at 4 ppm, so I'm going to take this down to a little under 4. You'll see this relay kick on here, and then I get a warning down here, so I can bring up that warning, and I can see that the limit was undershot on my channel 1. I can exit out of that. You can see that warning still there. I'm going to bring that chlorine level up above that 4 ppm, and you'll see it clears that relay. It also clears my error down here. I do display at channel 3 down here. That's kind of a, I always like to call it kind of a phantom channel. I can't plug this, remember the DACa is only a 2-channel controller. That third channel is if I'm doing, for instance, free and total chlorine. That third channel is a mathematical channel. It will display for me the difference between my channel 1 and channel 2. That's what that will get there, and I can set that difference up. I can assign that for a measured variable, for example, for my milliamp output. A couple other things you have with here, you can see that this just tells me I have an SD card present. The controller I'm hooked up to currently has a data logger. I can't access any of that data logged information from this browser. I would still have to physically pull that SD card from the controller to bring it up in Excel on my laptop. The next one tells me information. If I click the I button, it tells me the ident code, the serial number, what software version, some of the other information just about the pump controller I currently have. That about covers the browser. It's a nice looking browser to monitor what's going on through the process, and again, you can do that anywhere throughout the world. What we can do is right now is what you want to do when you're done with this is you typically want to log out. I'm going to close this. Now what I want to do is you want to make sure once you're logged out of it, you go back into your connection setting. I go back to properties. I go back to the Internet Protocol version 4, then to properties, and I want to change this back to I obtain IP address automatically. That way now when I go back to my desk and I put my laptop back on my docking station, it's going to hook up to our network here at Prominent. If I didn't do that, it wouldn't allow me to have internet access unless I was on a Wi-Fi network. So I'm going to exit out of this. And that about concludes the options of the LAN networking option that is released. Again, it is in the ident code. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the questions bar you should have on your screen. Feel free to ask any questions. While I'm waiting for questions, I ask that if you have any suggestions on future webinars, please let me know. You can put it in the question bar. You can email me. My email address is dougb@prominent.us. I'm running out of ideas of things people want to see, so let me know what you'd like to see. In the future, I'd like to expand on the Modbus option and see if we can get a PLC in here to show some of the programming options of that. So I'll give a couple minutes if anybody has any questions or any input on what they'd like to see in future webinars.